So now what we're going to do is we're going to transform our add to cart button into being a ajax button. That is an asynchronously loading button using jQuery. So we're really not reinventing anything here. We're going to go based off of this exact form, and we're going to make some changes to it only in the way that it's handled. That's really it. It's going to go to the same place. All the same data is going to come through there. The big change here is how it's actually handled. So if you're familiar with jQuery, a good idea to have or to do is on our form is to actually add a class to it or some sort of selector that identifies this form uniquely. So the form class that we will give it is simply product add ajax. Or probably just being a little bit more concise is form product ajax. That's it. So I'll go ahead and grab this and I'm going to come down into my base template. So base.html, and underneath base/js, I'm going to make a new script here. And this script will be my jQuery script. So document ready and function and so on. And then we want to have that selector for our form. So I just created that product form ajax. So I'm just going to say product var product form equals to this $, just like that. Okay, so this is the actual form for our product that we will handle. Now, before we go any further on this, I do want to make sure that jQuery is installed, and it is. This is it right here. But I actually have the wrong version of jQuery. I have a Slim version. All that Slim does is it doesn't have like as much features as the non-Slim version. So Slim is like missing Ajax. I know that for sure. So we'll just get rid of Slim. And since we've actually changed the file itself, we need to get rid of integrity and cross origin. So now we have a ready jQuery itself. And we're going to put that into an HTML comment. There we go. So jQuery should be ready now. So we should be able to do all sorts of stuff in this action here. So the form itself, we can actually handle the submit data. So when you click on a form, a action is called submit, right? So we submit that form and we want to actually prevent that from happening. We want the default to prevent from happening. So let's go into our jQuery that we're starting to develop here, and we're just going to say product form, and then we're going to handle that submit event by doing .submit, and we're going to do a function in here. And by default, this function passes in a event. Sometimes you'll see events just written in as E, but I'm going to leave it nice and robust for us and leave it as an event. So we'll do event.prevent default. So prevent default, of course, is not allowing this form to be submitted. Let's go ahead and check this out. Make sure at least this portion is running right now. So let's go into our products, into any given product, add to cart. If I click on it, actually nothing should happen. So it's actually not working currently. So let's go ahead and see why. I'm going to look at my JavaScript console with Command Option J on Windows and Mac, and then, or excuse me, on Mac and Linux, or probably just Mac actually, and then Windows users, developer, you can see it right there. I think it's probably Control-Shift-J. Anyway, so now that we've got this, I want to go back in here and I want to prevent this default action from happening, but for some reason my form's not. So let's go ahead and just double check to make sure I did everything right. Here is the class, and the dot means that it's a selector, much like if we were using it in CSS. And in the update cart, I have my class here. Those seem to be the same. And again, I saved everything. The last thing is we checked our JavaScript to make sure that I actually have jQuery, and I do. So let's go back in, refresh. I hit add to cart. Now it's not reloading. So notice the page is not actually changing. So nothing's actually happening to add to cart now. So if I come back in here, I can actually console log. So this is similar to like a print statement that the form is not sending. Okay. Form is not sending. Cool. And that's what we want. So a few other things that we want here is we want to know where this form is supposed to go. In other words, we want to know what the action is. So here's the action, and we also want to know the method. Now inside of the submit button or the submit event, I actually want to get a few things. So we have the default. I want to get the action. I also want to get the URL or the method, excuse me. So the action is actually the URL. So the action endpoint is what we'll call it. So, and then we'll just say the HTTP method is the actual method that's written here. So with these endpoints and the method, the final thing that we would probably need is just the data or the form data. So let's go through each one and get it. Now, first of all, we are using a class versus using an ID. So if we had, let's say, for instance, ID of form product ajax, we might be able to do this slightly different. But since I'm using a class, that means that a lot of these product forms could actually exist on any given page. And it's also possible that they might have different attributes to them, meaning that, hey, what if I put this class on a lot of these different pages and I have different attributes in here? That's definitely possible. So I want to eliminate that possibility by getting the data for the specific form I'm working with on this submit. So I'll just say var this form equals to $this. Okay, so this is grabbing the data related to this form. Okay, so let's go ahead and get the action endpoint first. Well, I'm going to just go var action, or well, we don't have to do var anymore, but I'll console log first this form dot attribute and action. Let's do that same thing for method. And let's take a look at those things. So, like always, we save all the time. I hit add to cart. I see the URL it's going to and the action. Post. Cool. So now I can actually start to develop my ajax call. .ajax action endpoint equals to that action. The method is equal to that method. And then the form data, we're simply going to just do this form dot serialize. There we go. And now we just say action or ajax URL is the action endpoint. The method is the HTTP method. The data is the form data. And then finally, we can have like success method. So if it is a successful call, then we'll do something. If it's an error, we'll do something else. So by default, these actually have some stuff come in. We'll actually look at the documentation to what it is. So I'll just say data here and then error data. So we'll just console log error and then the error data. Actually, let's put this on its own line. There we go. Let's copy this, paste in here, and I'll just say success and then data. Okay. So all this is doing is exactly the same thing as this original form. Let's go ahead and try it out. I'll just save it, go back into my project, and I'm also going to click preserve log on here and make sure that you have the settings showing up. So preserving log means that I'll be able to see what happens. Notice that when I refresh it, navigated to comes up as well. So I'll go ahead and click add to cart, and I actually get something coming back. It's saying success, but it's sending me back an HTML document. Well, Matt, this is kind of weird, but we'll see why in just a moment. But what I want to do is actually let's get out of our session to clear out the cart itself. The cart's empty. I'm going to close out this for a moment. View the hat, add to cart, click on the cart. What do you know? The hat is actually in there. Okay, so why did it send me back HTTP? So if I look back into that console, let's try that again. Products, t-shirt, add to cart. Why did it send me back all this? Well, that has to do with our endpoint. So if we look at our actual URL that's handling that stuff, which was, let's look back at that cart. It was the cart update URL. So in carts, views, we've got our cart update view here. What it's doing is it's trying to return this redirect, which is our cart homepage. And that cart homepage actually returns a HTTP response. So we will have to update this, but I will just say one thing, and we can actually come in here and say if request.isAjax, then we can print out Ajax request. We'll save that. Try it again. And of course, it's going to print out in the terminal, right? So let's go into products, add to cart, terminal. We get Ajax request. Really cool. So we actually have to figure out how to handle the Ajax request in the back end. But we have it set up in the front end. It's really that simple. Let's just recap real quick what we did. We got a form selector. So we got a form, any given form. And it doesn't actually matter what the form is. And then we just prevented the default action from happening. And then we got the attributes about that form. So where it's going, the method that it has, and then the data that's in that form. And that's it. That's the only thing that we did. And then we ran this request using something called Ajax instead of our standard synchronous request. And that's it. So Ajax stands for asynchronous JavaScript request. So all we did here was turn this form into an asynchronous JavaScript request. But now we actually have to set up Django to handle Ajax. We'll do that in the next one.